All right, we're back with the Fox News Alert. Get this, Empire actor Jussie Smollett on bond now. He is out and maintaining his innocence after Chicago police accuse him in elaborate detail of a hate crime against himself.
The president tweeting, quote, Jussie Smollett, what about MAGA and the tens of millions of people you insulted with your racist and dangerous comments? Hashtag Make America Great Again.
Let's go to the North Lawn of the White House, and Sarah Sanders, the president's press secretary, joins us live. Good morning to you, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Good morning. Great to be with you guys this morning.
Great to have you as well. This Jussie Smollett story is so troubling. Why did the president put out that tweet?
Look, I think there were so many people, including a lot of leadership from the Democrat Party, everybody from Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, and a number of others, mostly those that are running for president, that quickly came out and attacked the president, blamed the president. And in fact, as we learn more, it certainly seems like the only person to blame in this case is Smollett. And it's another sad example of people so quick to want to attack and come after this president, much like you saw with the Covington kids and certainly with this case as well. And the president's pushing back.
What about this? He's going to Vietnam next week to meet with Kim Jong-un, and they're calling it Summit 2.0. What can you expect?
Look, I think you can expect continued conversations between the two leaders. We've seen progress since the beginning of this administration. When the president first took over, we were at great odds with North Korea. We're finally making progress. We're not seeing missiles being tested and flying over other countries. The remains are coming home. The hostages were released. And look, we've got a long way to go, and we'll see what happens. But we're continuing to make progress, and this is another great step for the president and Chairman Kim to be able to sit down and continue those conversations.
Well, and interesting, do you think the expectations have risen to the point where the president's got to walk away with something, or the criticism will be greater than the praise? And if so, has the ground been plowed for him to do it? And I know the North Koreans want us to give in any area. Are we prepared to give it all?
Look, we've kept the sanctions on throughout the process. We're going to continue to keep them on until the president makes a decision that that's not necessary anymore. Again, we're making progress. The president's in no hurry, particularly as long as things continue to move forward in a positive manner and as long as the conversations continue to go well. Again, we'll see what happens. I think that the only one setting high expectations is probably the media, because they're looking for reasons to attack this president. They hate the idea that he's done so well on something his predecessors couldn't do anything on. He's had a great success here in the fact that they were able to even sit down at the table. The fact he's able to do it again is in itself a big success.
And I'd just like to add, the Washington Post, of all places, does cite some places in which the North Koreans have shown some changes. They found that North Korea actually halted key elements of its weapons program and decreasing the threat in the area. And he got rid of 4 people to Kim Jong-un. Many people think some of those 4 people were standing in the way of progress between our two countries.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're continuing to make progress, but we're certainly not naive in the process, and the president's going to take things one step at a time. All
right. The #1 story for the longest time has been that this president, this administration, colluded with the Russians to win. Of course, we haven't seen any evidence of collusion thus far, but the story out there now is it sounds like Robert Mueller is wrapping up his probe. You know, there have been stories that the staff on the special counsel's office has been reduced. Rod Rosenstein, who had said that he was going to stick through until it's released, is about to go. What is the White House's, what are you hearing from people at the Department of Justice?
Look, we're seeing the same reports that you are, that it's possible that this is coming to a conclusion, that in his report will be finished. And we feel good about the fact that what we've said all along for the last 2 years will be clear. There was no collusion. I mean, the idea that President Trump needed to collude with Russia in order to beat Hillary Clinton is frankly laughable. He was an infinitely better candidate with a better message, and he outworked her. That's why he won. It had nothing to do with Russia or any other country for that matter. It had to do with the fact that he was simply better than she was.
Sarah, the White House says that the U.S. is keeping 200 American troops in Syria after the pullout as a small peacekeeping force. Why? Will you elaborate on that? Why do they do this? Or why are you guys doing this?
Again, this is a rough estimate, about 200, not a specific number. We're in constant contact with our allies. We're going to continue to be in communication with them. At the end of the day, the president wants to bring our troops home, and he's working towards that. He wants to do that in a safe and peaceful way, in the best way possible, to make sure that we have complete safety for our troops that are abroad.
Is the president concerned that Michael Cohen is going to be testifying publicly on Wednesday about his business, how he interacted with the president in business even before he ran for president?
I don't think the president has any concerns whatsoever about Michael Cohen. I think Michael Cohen may need to be concerned for himself, but that's certainly something that's not influencing or bothering us in this building.
If he starts talking about with the things that a lawyer-client deal with over the past 12 years, we know the president's had a lot of litigation in the past. Michael Cohen's been all over that. That doesn't concern the president at all?
Look, that's a problem that he's going to have to deal with if he breaks and violates some type of client-lawyer privilege. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to try to get into what that looks like. What I can tell you is the president's very confident in what he has and hasn't done, and he's not concerned about Michael Cohen.
All right. Sarah Sanders, always a pleasure. Thank you
Sarah.
very much for joining us. Have a nice weekend.
Nice slow
Thank
week.
you so much. Have a great night.
Breaking tonight, federal prosecutors say a Coast Guard officer who has been arrested on gun charges had a hit list and intended to target civilians. Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hansen was taken into custody by FBI agents in Maryland. Prosecutors say they found evidence Hansen was focusing on prominent politicians and TV personalities. National security correspondent Jennifer Griffin is live tonight with details on this. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Brett. The details in this affidavit are chilling. Federal prosecutors say they arrested an active duty Coast Guard lieutenant, Christopher Paul Hassan, who allegedly planned to kill top Democratic lawmakers and media personalities. He described himself as a white nationalist who wanted to establish a white homeland and said, "I am dreaming of a way to kill almost every last person on earth." The affidavit provides shocking details. Quote, "The defendant intends to murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in this country. He must be detained pending trial." The FBI raided his cramped Silver Spring, Maryland apartment, where they found a cache of guns and evidence that he was targeting prominent politicians and TV personalities from MSNBC and CNN, who he called traitors. He had worked at Coast Guard headquarters since 2016 and conducted searches on his work computer. He was arrested on federal weapons and drug charges last week. Lieutenant Hassan had a spreadsheet of targets. Those individuals included Joey, who most likely is Joe Scarborough of MSNBC based on his computer searches, Chris Hayes from MSNBC, Senator Richard Blumenthal, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senators Tim Kaine, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator Cory Booker, among others. Prosecutors say this Coast Guard lieutenant, who they describe as a domestic terrorist, wrote about biological attacks and had a hit list. Court papers suggest Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hassan held these views for years, citing a June 2017 email outlining an attack with a biological weapon. The FBI found 15 firearms and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition in his apartment. He is slated to appear in a Maryland court on Thursday. Prosecutors are saying these charges are the, quote, proverbial tip of the iceberg. Brett?
We'll follow this. Jennifer, thank you.
White House correspondent John Roberts with the view from the North Lawn today. Brand new week, John. Good morning.
Happy President's Day to you from the White House this morning. MoveOn.org has got a day of protest planned across the nation, including one, we believe, in Lafayette Park right across the White House. You mentioned Javier Becerra, the Attorney General from California. He, the American Civil Liberties Union, and others are all lining up to file lawsuits against the president's emergency declaration when they return from their week off this week. It's a recess. Members of Congress on the Democratic side planning on introducing legislation to block the emergency declaration as well. Listen to what Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, said yesterday.
Is this the first time a president has tried to declare an emergency when Congress explicitly rejected funding for the particular project that the president is advocating?
Yeah, you know, the president said on Friday in announcing this that there's been dozens of emergency declarations, but this one is an appropriations declaration, which is designed to circumvent Congress. White House officials say, though, if Congress does pass legislation to block the declaration, the president may veto it. Here's the president's chief policy advisor, Steve Miller, with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday.
Obviously, the president is going to protect his national emergency declaration, Chris. And I know that we're out of time, but again, I want to make this point. There's no threat.
So, yes, he will veto?
He's going to protect his national emergency declaration, guaranteed. This is a threat in our country, not overseas, not in Belarus, not in Zimbabwe, not in Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq, but right here. And if the president can't defend this country, then he cannot fulfill his constitutional oath of office.
Now, keep in mind, Bill, everybody's talking about this emergency declaration. The emergency declaration only unlocks the military construction money, the so-called Section 2808 money. All of the other money, which includes the Treasury forfeiture, the Section 284 DOD, anti-drug funds, transferring some money within the DOD, he doesn't need the emergency declaration for that. So the White House believes that even with these court challenges, they still may be able to get their hands on about $4.5 billion to put toward wall construction.
Which isn't nothing, right? McCabe interview.
It's almost what the president wanted.
Exactly right about that. McCabe interview last night, 60 Minutes. What's the White House saying about that today, John?
Yeah, clearly making a lot of news. Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI, saying while he did not participate in lengthy discussions about a 25th Amendment removal of the president, he did speak to Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general, about it. Rosenstein mentioned it to McCabe, and according to McCabe, Rosenstein was serious about it. Listen to what he said on 60 Minutes.
The discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort.
Not surprisingly, the president going off on McCabe and Rosenstein this morning, tweeting, quote, "Wow, so many lies by now disgraced acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe. He was fired for lying, and now his story gets even more deranged. He and Rod Rosenstein, who was hired by Jeff Sessions, another beauty, looked like they were planning a very illegal act and got caught. There is a lot of explaining to do to the millions of people who had just elected a president who they really like and who has done a great job for them in the military, vets, economy, and so much more. This was the illegal and treasonous insurance policy in full action." South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, vowing that he is going to investigate what he called an administrative coup, says if necessary, he will subpoena McCabe and Rosenstein to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Committee member Chris Coons has got a different take on it, though. First, listen to Graham and then Coons.
There's an allegation by the acting FBI director at the time that the Deputy Attorney General was basically trying to do an administrative coup, take the president down through the 25th Amendment process. The Deputy Attorney General denies it, so I promise your viewers the following, that we will have a hearing about who's telling the truth.
It is alarming that there were apparently folks at the highest levels of our government considering whether or not our president is unfit to serve. I don't think that this, frankly, rises to the level of some deep state conspiracy.
No word yet on when Graham may call for that hearing, but I expect it'll be sometime pretty soon. Bill?
Thank you, John. Nice to see you. John Roberts there at the White House.